Elvis's hands were shaking as he walked onto his first movie set, and within 2 hours, a veteran actor had reduced him to tears in front of 50 crew members. What that actor didn't expect was what Elvis did next. It was a crisp Monday morning in August 1956, and 21-year-old Elvis Presley was standing outside Stage 8 at 20th Century Fox Studios in Los Angeles. In just a few minutes, he would walk through those doors and begin filming his first motion picture, Love Me Tender. He should have been excited. He should have been thrilled. Instead, he was absolutely terrified. Elvis had conquered the music world. He'd performed in front of screaming crowds, appeared on national television, sold millions of records. But this was different. This was Hollywood. This was the world of Marlon Brando and James Dean, actors who had trained for years and dedicated their lives to their craft. Elvis was just a singer from Memphis who'd never taken an acting class in his life. He stood outside those stage doors for a full 5 minutes, trying to calm his breathing, trying to stop his hands from trembling. A production assistant finally came looking for him. "Mr. Presley, they're ready for you inside." Elvis nodded, took one last deep breath, and walked into a world he didn't understand. The soundstage was enormous, filled with lights and cameras and crew members rushing in every direction. A full Western town set had been constructed, complete with a saloon, a general store, and a dusty main street. Elvis felt like he'd stepped into another dimension. The director, Robert Webb, spotted Elvis and walked over with a friendly smile. "There he is. Welcome to Hollywood, Elvis. We're thrilled to have you." Elvis shook his hand, grateful for the warm reception. "Thank you, sir. I'm real nervous, to be honest. Never done anything like this before." "Don't worry about a thing," Webb said. "We'll take care of you. Come on, let me introduce you to your co-stars." Webb led Elvis across the set to where a group of actors were gathered, running lines and drinking coffee. Among them was Richard Egan, the film's lead actor, a handsome man in his mid-30s who had been in Hollywood for over a decade. There was also Deborah Paget, the beautiful leading lady, and several supporting actors. But the person who caught Elvis's attention was an older man sitting slightly apart from the group, watching everything with sharp, critical eyes. His name was William Campbell, a character actor in his 40s who had been in dozens of films and was known throughout Hollywood for his intense method-acting approach and his complete disdain for anyone he considered unworthy of the craft. "Everyone, this is Elvis Presley," Webb announced. "He'll be playing Clint Reno. Elvis, meet your movie family." Richard Egan stepped forward with a genuine smile and shook Elvis's hand warmly. "Welcome aboard, son. Don't let the cameras scare you. Just be natural, and you'll do fine." Deborah Paget was equally kind, giving Elvis a gentle hug and telling him how much she loved his music. But when Elvis approached William Campbell, the older actor didn't stand up. He didn't offer his hand. He just looked Elvis up and down with an expression of undisguised contempt. "So you're the singer," Campbell said flatly. "The one they're putting in movies now because teenagers buy records." Elvis felt his face flush. "Yes, sir. I'm Elvis Presley. Nice to meet you." Campbell snorted. "I'm sure it is." He turned back to his script, dismissing Elvis completely. The first few hours of filming were a nightmare for Elvis. Every time the cameras rolled, he forgot his lines. His movements felt stiff and awkward. His voice came out strange and unnatural. He could feel the crew watching him, could sense their skepticism, could see the doubt in their eyes. Take after take, Elvis stumbled through his scenes. Director Webb was patient, offering gentle guidance and encouragement. Richard Egan was supportive, quietly coaching Elvis on camera angles and line delivery between takes. But nothing seemed to help. Elvis felt like a fraud, a pretender who had no business being on a professional movie set. During a break between scenes, Elvis was standing alone near the craft services table, trying to collect himself, when William Campbell approached him. Several crew members were within earshot, and Campbell made no effort to lower his voice. "You know what your problem is, kid?" Elvis turned to face him. "No, sir. What's my problem?" "Your problem is that you think being famous makes you an actor. It doesn't. Acting is a craft that takes years of dedication to master. It requires training, discipline, and talent." Campbell stepped closer, his voice dripping with venom. You have none of those things. You're a carnival act who got lucky, a pretty face who can wiggle his hips and make teenage girls scream. But that doesn't make you an actor. That makes you a sideshow." Elvis stood frozen, unable to respond. "I've worked with legends," Campbell continued, now loud enough that everyone in the vicinity could hear. "I've shared the screen with Humphrey Bogart, with Spencer Tracy, with actors who actually understood what it means to create a character. And now I'm forced to work with a truck driver from Tennessee who can't deliver a single line without looking like a deer caught in headlights." Crew members were stopping their work, watching the confrontation unfold. Elvis could feel 50 pairs of eyes on him. "You don't belong here, Presley. You're an embarrassment to this production and an insult to everyone who has ever taken acting seriously. My advice? Go back to your concerts and your screaming fans and leave the movies to people who actually have talent." Campbell turned and walked away, leaving Elvis standing there in front of the entire crew, utterly humiliated. Elvis tried to hold it together. He clenched his jaw, balled his fists, willed himself not to cry. But the tears came anyway. He stood there in the middle of that soundstage with 50 strangers watching, and he couldn't stop the tears from streaming down his face. He turned and walked quickly toward the exit, desperate to get away, to hide, to disappear. But before he could reach the door, a hand caught his arm. It was Richard Egan. "Hold on, son. Don't run." "I can't do this," Elvis said, his voice breaking. "He's right. I don't belong here. I don't know what I'm doing." Egan put his hand on Elvis's shoulder and looked him directly in the eyes. "Listen to me carefully. Bill Campbell is a bitter man who's been in this business for 20 years and never became a star. He takes out his frustration on anyone who has something he doesn't. Don't let him define you." "But he's right about one thing," Elvis said. "I don't know how to act. I'm just faking it." "We're all faking it, son. Every single one of us. The difference between amateurs and professionals isn't that professionals know what they're doing. It's that they keep going even when they don't." Egan squeezed his shoulder. "Now dry your eyes, walk back onto that set, and show everyone that Elvis Presley doesn't quit." Elvis wiped his face with his sleeve and looked at Egan. Something in the older man's eyes gave him strength. "What if I fail?" Elvis asked. "Then you fail, and then you try again. That's what actors do. That's what everyone does who ever tried to do something hard." Egan smiled. "Now come on, we've got a movie to make." Elvis walked back onto that set. His eyes were still red. His hands were still shaking. But he was there. Director Webb called for the next scene, a tense confrontation between Elvis's character and Campbell's character. It was the scene Elvis had been dreading most because it required him to show real emotional intensity. As they took their positions, Campbell smirked at Elvis. "Try not to embarrass yourself too badly," he muttered. Something shifted inside Elvis at that moment. All the fear, all the humiliation, all the anger he'd been feeling suddenly transformed into something else. He remembered every person who'd ever told him he couldn't do something. The choir teacher who said he couldn't sing, the record executives who said he'd be forgotten in 6 months, and now this bitter actor who said he'd never belong in movies. "Action!" Webb called. Elvis delivered his lines with a raw emotional intensity that surprised everyone on set, including himself. He wasn't reciting words from a script anymore. He was channeling every ounce of pain and determination he'd felt that day. His voice cracked with genuine emotion. His eyes blazed with something real and powerful. When the scene called for him to get angry at Campbell's character, Elvis didn't have to act. He let all the hurt from Campbell's words fuel his performance. His hands shook not from fear, but from barely contained rage. His voice rose with authentic passion. When Webb called cut, the set was completely silent. Then, something unexpected happened. The crew started applauding. Not polite, obligatory applause, but genuine, surprised, impressed applause. Webb walked onto the set with a huge smile on his face. "Elvis, that was incredible. That was exactly what this scene needed. Let's move on." Campbell stood there, his face a mixture of shock and something that might have been grudging respect. He hadn't expected the kid he'd just humiliated to come back and deliver a performance that good. For the rest of that first day, Elvis channeled everything he was feeling into his performance. The fear, the insecurity, the determination to prove everyone wrong. It all became fuel. He still made mistakes. He still had moments of doubt, but he kept going, just like Egan had told him. When filming wrapped for the day, Elvis was exhausted, emotionally drained, but also strangely exhilarated. He'd survived. He hadn't run away. He'd faced his fear and come out the other side. As the crew was packing up, William Campbell approached Elvis. This time, his expression was different, harder to read, but no longer contemptuous. "That scene this afternoon," Campbell said grudgingly, "it wasn't bad." Elvis looked at him steadily. "Thank you, sir." "Don't thank me. I didn't give you a compliment." Campbell paused, seeming to wrestle with something internally. "What I did this morning was wrong. I was trying to break you because I resented you. You walked in here with fame and success that I've spent my whole career trying to achieve. I wanted to see you fail." Elvis didn't respond, just listened. "But you didn't fail. You came back. That took something." Campbell extended his hand. "I was wrong about you, Presley. You might not be a trained actor, but you've got something that can't be taught. You've got guts." Elvis shook his hand. "Mr. Campbell, you taught me something today, too." "What's that?" "You taught me that the people who try to break you are usually fighting their own battles, and you taught me that the only way to prove them wrong is to keep going." Campbell's face softened almost imperceptibly. "You'll do all right in this business, kid. Just don't let it change who you are." Over the next few weeks of filming, Elvis and Campbell developed an unlikely mutual respect. Campbell became one of Elvis's unofficial acting coaches, teaching him about camera angles, emotional preparation, and the technical aspects of film acting. He never apologized directly for that first day again, but his actions spoke louder than any apology could. Years later, in interviews, Campbell would tell the story of that first day with obvious remorse. "I tried to destroy that kid because I was jealous and bitter. Instead, I watched him turn my cruelty into fuel. That taught me something about real strength." Elvis, for his part, kept a note he'd written to himself that night after his first day of filming. It said, "They will try to make you cry. Let them. Then dry your eyes and prove them wrong." He carried that note throughout his entire film career, 31 movies over 15 years. Whenever he faced criticism, whenever he doubted himself, whenever someone told him he didn't belong, he'd remember that first day. He'd remember standing in front of 50 crew members with tears on his face, and he'd remember what he did next. He walked back onto the set. He delivered the scene. He didn't quit. Richard Egan remained a lifelong friend to Elvis, always proud of the role he'd played on that crucial first day. "All I did was remind him of who he already was," Egan would say. "The strength was already there. He just needed someone to help him see it." What made that friendship even more remarkable was what Elvis did years later when Egan fell on hard times. In the mid-1960s, Egan's career had slowed considerably, and he was struggling to find work in an industry that had moved on to younger leading men. Elvis heard about his old friend's difficulties through mutual acquaintances and immediately reached out. "Richard helped me when I was nobody on that set," Elvis told his manager. "He didn't have to do that. He was already a star, and I was just some kid who didn't know which end of the camera to look at. But he treated me like an equal. That's not something you forget." Elvis quietly arranged for Egan to be cast in supporting roles in 2 of his films, providing his old mentor with both work and dignity during a difficult period. He never publicized these gestures, never sought credit for helping someone who had helped him. When Egan tried to thank him, Elvis simply said, "You told me once that we all fake it until we make it." Well, I made it, and I'm not about to forget who helped me get started. Egan was deeply moved by Elvis's loyalty. In interviews later in life, he would often get emotional when discussing their friendship. Hollywood is full of people who forget where they came from the moment they become successful. Elvis never forgot. He remembered a conversation we had on a soundstage in 1956 and carried that gratitude with him for decades. That tells you everything you need to know about who he really was. The crew members who witnessed that first day also never forgot what they saw. Many of them worked on multiple Elvis films over the years, and they all noticed something. Elvis treated every person on set with respect, from the director down to the lowest production assistant. He remembered names, he asked about families, he brought gifts on the last day of shooting. When asked why he was so considerate of crew members, Elvis would sometimes reference that first day. "I know what it feels like to be the lowest person in the room," he'd say. "I know what it feels like to have everyone watching while you fall apart. Those crew members saw me at my worst, and most of them were kind about it. I never forgot that kindness." Love Me Tender was released in November 1956 and became a commercial success. Critics weren't unanimously kind, but audiences didn't care. They wanted to see Elvis on screen, and that's exactly what they got. But more important than the box office receipts or the reviews was what Elvis learned on that first day. He learned that tears don't mean you're weak, they mean you're human. He learned that the people who try to break you often need compassion more than confrontation. And he learned that the only failure that matters is the failure to keep going. Elvis's hands were shaking when he walked onto his first movie set. Within 2 hours, he'd been reduced to tears in front of everyone. But what happened next? The way he dried his eyes, walked back out, and delivered one of the best scenes of his early career. That's what defined him. Not the tears, not the humiliation, the comeback. If this story of public humiliation and private triumph moved you, make sure to subscribe and share this video. Let us know in the comments if you've ever been made to cry in front of others and had to find the strength to keep going. Sometimes our worst moments become the foundation for our greatest strengths.